Welcome everyone to another Spotlight session. Today we're very privileged to be welcomed by Stephen Hoskins, who's the Managing Director of Rolls Voice. Firstly, Stephen, thank you very much for joining us, mate.
Oh, thanks, Martin. Thanks for having us. Good to be here.
Yeah, and just so everyone is aware, I've actually known Stephen for, we're now giving away a bit of age, mate, but it's going to be close to 20 years when we worked together at American Express many moons ago. And I've been very privileged to also stay in contact with Stephen to see what he actually, see his career progress. And we've also spoken a lot over the last 24 months around what we're doing at stratapp, but also Stephen's consulting model as well. And there's a lot of alignment with how we think. But I also want to share with the audience as well that Stephen, you're probably hands down, the fact that I'm calling you Stephen as well, Mr. Hoskins, you're probably hands down the funniest guy I've ever worked with. I remember in our 20s and early 30s, the amount of energy and fun that we had at work, which is really what gave me a lot of inspiration over time. So I've really enjoyed reconnecting with you, and I look forward to what we're going to talk about today, because a lot of those themes will be around fun in the workplace. And how do we actually drive that, which today is more important than any time ever. So I'd love for you just to give a bit of an introduction of you, your business, to the audience as well.
Sure. Thanks, Marty. And no pressure on the funny aspect. I'll try and blend as appropriately as I can, knowing the audience that we have here. So yes, at present, I do conduct stand-up comedy. I also have a stand-up comedy show and a business I'm partnered with my brother on. And we take stand-up comedy mainly in New South Wales, here in Sydney, around the clubs and leagues clubs and that kind of thing, that circuit, RSL, and just bring people a great time. And that's ultimately what I did when I worked with you. I always had an innate sense that whatever you do in life doesn't have to be too serious, doesn't have to be bogged in too much control by others or yourself. You just got to have a good time, appropriately, of course, in the workplace, which I think I've managed to do very well. Had a few moments from time to time. Yeah, people thought maybe I need to be more serious and do the tie up a little bit. And ultimately, when I left the corporate world, that's when I went into doing things like the acting, the voiceover work, and the comedy. And I have to tell you, I've never been happier having done that. So my consulting business takes forward all of the learnings I had when I worked with yourself and before I joined American Express. But I've also been on a journey with a specific focus to make the lives of people who ultimately go to work either in a large corporate or small to medium enterprise better. Yes. Better at home and at work. So I conduct a lot of intrapersonal investigation where people look at what their main motivators are in what they do at all in life and how that transfers to work, and vice versa. Also, how they interpersonally connected with their leader and the people that work for them. Yeah, love it. And then from the whole business perspective of what are the systemic issues that are going on, what are the processes, the strategies that are working or not working, how they all link together. And those three things are pretty much what runs a business and how a business can perform. So I do that, and I ultimately love it, getting to the why people get out of bed and do what they do every day. That fascinates me. That's what I do in my business, and that's what I like to connect. That's the Simon Sinek angle, as you know.
Well, you do talk about Simon in your modeling, right? So as you work with organizations, maybe let's, because there's quite a few things that you and I have really connected on. And the fact that we've got a comedian talking about strategy, I love it. I love it. I said that was always but you've taken it from really how do we connect? How do we engage, right? You use words like cultural fitness, right? These are fantastic things, but it's ultimately all about our people, right? It's all about how do we actually get fun in the workplace. So when you talk about the word connectedness, which is a word that I'm really, I personally love and I'm passionate about as we look at our technology. But let's work with that for a bit. How do you think about it?
Well, coming out of a pandemic or still being in a pandemic, depending what part of the world you're watching this from, everyone will absolutely have the 2020 effect of disconnection from society, disconnection from people they love, and disconnection from their workplace.
Yeah.
So connectedness is about how, to what degree you feel that these connections are in good order, and they've all been damaged in 2020. So where I'm looking at it from a business perspective is, how badly damaged is it, and what can we do about it? Because I mean, look at us. Would we ordinarily be doing this through Zoom if we weren't in the situation we were with, or would we be in a studio, you and I'd be holding hands, and it'd be like, it'd be amazing. And it's not, right? Because of now technology.
Trying to make it that way, right? We're trying our best to make it that way. Yeah.
And we can talk about technology and how important that is as well, because tyranny of distance exists as well. And this is a great way to connect, you and I, to connect and connect with your audience and my audience and so forth. But a sustained and a persistent continuation of this, it alienates people. People feel isolated, they're alone, they're not with their team.
It does.
It's just so valuable. So what can we do when we are forced to communicate in this way to stay connected? And technology is the solution. We've all seen that. There's no surprise in that. But it's the way that you engage that matters the most. Because no one likes to be connected. Almost sounds like a telecom ad, right? No one wants to be connected forcefully, or feel that their connection is trite or not coming from a great place.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's about, what do people want? What do people need? And how they can deliver those together. And that's where a cultural fitness program that I conduct can actually bring them out. So we can test what's the mood of the organization, how is strategy filtering down, how enabled are people to do what they need to do. And it's a bit of the castle, right? It's the overall vibe of the thing.
For our international audience, we might need to expand upon that, because that's very much an Australian theme.
People know genuine connection and genuine intention. So it's about having the right intention, that people can really feel like they're going to a place of work that they feel safe. And we talk about psychological safety. Psychological safety is incredible. When we were back at American Express, I can tell you, in Australia, in Sydney, there were moments where I did not have a sense of psychological safety, that I could be truly me, talk about the issues that the organization's facing or customers are facing, without that being shot down in some way, or looking like I'm batting for the customer, not for the company. You know, those kind of discussions. That was quite prolific. And so I can use that experience to uncover that in organizations where it still happens. And there's some great studies that show organizations that actually highlight mistakes, problems, things that don't go well, and fail forward and celebrate failure, actually have a much stronger sense of psychological safety than those that feel they have to cover that up. And in fact, they don't have any more or less. It's just that the organization that can reveal more looks like they have more problems. They don't. They just talk about it more. They bring it out. That's a really interesting factor.
I love that. Because we do talk a lot about transparency. Ray Dalio's radical transparency modeling. And the other thing you talked about, so without going down the Ray Dalio framework of radical transparency, I agree. Transparency does open up all discussions. It doesn't just open up the good discussions or the perceived good discussions. And that's where a lot of people get caught, because we want to always think life is good and how we're moving it forward. But the reality is, not everything is that way. We've got to be totally open from the entire. I don't like hierarchy models, but everyone within the organization has the ability to be open. The question when it comes to cultural side is, are we? Right? Or do we have silos in that openness, which also does then create open challenges inside the workforce as well?
I like to talk to organizations about being realistic optimists.
Like it.
Be realistic. What's the current situation? Be optimistic, but you got to, if it walks like a duck and sounds like a duck and looks like a duck, it's probably a duck.
Yeah.
So many times we have organizations that want to keep that truth away and just look at, all right, let's just keep moving forward. Let's just keep going above and beyond, when you actually need to fix some pretty serious systemic issues or things that aren't going great. Combined with psychological safety is we need to ensure that places of work build the resilience of their people. Resilience is it's bandied around a lot, and when you come down to it, do you learn resilience or are you born with resilience? I think we all know that you're probably born with a certain level of it, but you can definitely develop it. And how can you build the resilience of your team? And the best way to do that is by practice. That's why great sporting teams that endure, any great athlete, any great athlete that endures has endurance. They have resilience to pain, basically. And I'm not saying work is pain. It can be.
It can be.
Can be. But we're certainly all thrown in a painful situation, both economically and personally, with pandemic. And having the resilience to cope with it by being realistic about the situation, admitting that it's there is half of that as well. You take a lot of power out of a problem by calling it out. When you deny anything, you deny emotion, and you don't allow that to come through, it builds up and becomes bigger and becomes more of a problem, and the domino effect happens there. But you can actually practice resilience by, and not a lot of companies do this. And some of the organizations I've been working with, we've been getting this going by actually doing some scenario setting. So you know how we do workshops and we might go and we'll hypothesize on a situation. How about hypothesizing a situation in your own organization that hasn't happened, hopefully never does happen, but then ideate around that, use the tools that we have, and have people come at it from a different angle. So you have marketing coming at operations with an idea, you have operations coming with sales with an idea, and you can break it and muck it up. And you can model what would happen if we did that, and then at Friday afternoon Zoom drinks, laugh about, hey, imagine we had that problem when we did this. Look how bad we got it, or look how well we did by having people in different business units, different silos, as you said before, approaching a problem in a different way. And
I love it.
That's fun, right? So why can't we have fun so that when the stuff hits the fan and you go, this happened in our scenario, remember we did that in March 2021? Let's implement what we learned then. Sure, there'll be different people in the organization in the future, and they may have not gone through the simulation, but that's a really important thing.
You touch on something. Practice. The resilience and the ability to also get ahead of the game. We call it at stratapp working on the business and not in the business. When you're constantly working in the business, you've got so many blockers to what it is you've got to get done right now in this next half an hour, as opposed to working on the business. You get to do what you're talking about. Let's stop for a minute and work on a part of the business that it's. I like how you look at it. It's either happened or hasn't happened, right? And let's come up with those scenarios. And it made me think about a HR example of, we had a mentoring program, it failed. Well, why did it fail? Because we matched people up, and people weren't holding each other accountable, and some people turned up, some people didn't. And I basically said to them, I said, well, how many people you've got? They had 750 people in the company. And I went, you've got so much intellectual property or horsepower sitting there. That's just individual right now. Why don't you share the program with the team? And the minute they contribute, they're contributing to your success. Because they're not just coming with their ideas, what are successful mentoring programs. They've learned from all these other areas of what's worked well and hasn't worked well. And they're going to dump you all the gold. And then you get to redevelop that, share the journey with them, and then they will be more invested into getting on board. And by the way, you can set up the structures in our tool, and so everyone's held accountable to the actions. But it's sort of, I love it because you get to embrace more people in that journey, not just a small group of people. And I really love the way you think about that.
Well, thanks. It's coupled with, I like how in your example, you're sifting the gold from the coal, right? So you have the nuggets that people have experienced before that work well, shine them off, call them something else, and you get rid of the stuff that companies repeat all the time because they have that idea. People going, how many times have you been in a group think at a new organization, and you come up with an idea and they go, yeah, we did that, didn't work, and you end up with coal because everyone's attached to what the terrible outcomes were, and they're not taking forward all the good ones.
Really good stuff.
What I do with organizations when I work at the leadership level and have a look at their levels of resilience, engagement of their people, the agility of the organization, and their leadership quality, I then get the whole organization together and we conduct fun shops, not workshops, because you won't get someone to come to a workshop as you would a fun shop, right?
I love it.
Tying back in, people go, fun shop? What's a fun shop? It's what we do.
Wait, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, we get people in, it's vibrant, there's music, there's stuff to chuck at one another, there's audio visual, all that. But then there's work, there is work undertaken, and that is, I don't work for your organization, I'm a consultant.
Yes.
I know some challenges that are going on at the organizational level because we've conducted surveys and you've been part of that. I've got some ideas, but I want to hear from you anonymously, not attach your name to it, but what's not going well? What should we stop, start, continue, basically? And sky's the limit. Just go nuts. What would be a good example of your organization in 3 years' time that the Twitter sphere would be going berserk about? Give me some hashtags. What would they be saying? And then this just opens up people's creativity, and they're the best place to work, and voted this, and that. We, knocked Google off or whatever, massive. Have an office on Mars that's come up a few times. And then, to get there, we now have a vision, right? Let's do, what should we stop doing? What should we start doing? What we should continue doing?
Yes.
And it's amazing what can come out of that. Just getting the right atmosphere, the right level of safety that they can do that in front of this crazy cat. But they would never do that with their leaders because no one wants to look silly. No one wants to get the wrong answer. So when you get rid of that, you get the gold. And that's some of the areas that I've found some great success. So I had a client I worked with, they had 30% attrition annually, 30%. Wow. And after conducting a year's worth of this type of interaction, in, I think it was 18 months following that, they were down to single figures, like literally a tenth of that level.
And what was the 2 or 3 things that were monumental in the change?
Number one was the engagement. The people who are engaged don't leave. So there was a big communication challenge. So talk about connectedness, because communication is connection. And you and I have spoken a lot about what stratapp does as far as connecting so many things that organizations have in technology world into one focused place. This was before I met you, by the way. So had we have had stratapp, it would have been a suggested technology for them. So they basically sort of stratapp their own business in a way by improving connectedness and engagement, by empowering people through decision making and inclusion. And then the other one was actually the physical layout, the work environment that they had. They improved that as well, because this organization had some challenges in that area pre-pandemic and all that. So people just loved coming to work after that. They felt their contribution mattered. They lightened up. They had more fun. They had a much more engaging workplace in which they went to work. They could share information, provide feedback safely, and things got better.
Yeah, fantastic. And you also, sort of the way I also think about the fact that it was before you and I talked about stratapp, but it's an evolving practice. I was talking to a client the other day and I said, how's it going? He goes, it's evolving. And I just went, that's a positive, right? That means you're actually seeing it progress forward, right? You're not going backwards, right? Because you're not evolving when you're going backwards. You're going backwards. Where this is, we've put a stake in the ground. These are the things that we need to get done, and we're seeing it move, right? And we've still got the North Star we've got to get to. I think the other thing too that I like to think about in that connectedness side is, especially, how do you onboard new hires? How do you get them, within 24 hours, totally understanding what your organization is about, what your plan is, and what their role is in the plan, most importantly? How do they contribute to everyone around them?
But once they're involved, I recommend, literally almost for the first month, that person just goes everywhere through the business, from everything, depending what the business is, literally from the warehouse floor, and sit with the CEO, and see some of the phone calls the CEO deals with, and some of the meetings they have. Like, the organization, I'm not talking about flattening the structure. It's just get the understanding of how this place works from soup to nuts.
Yeah.
And it'll be incredible when that person is doing their job,
yes,
for what they're paid to do, that the amount of empathy that they will have for everyone in the organization. And you do that with every onboarding, you eventually evolve. I love your word, evolve. You have an organization that everyone feels a part of everything. They don't do everything, of course, but there's no element of, it just eliminates silos, because people know what they do over there in accounts. People know what they do over there in client management.
Yeah.
And then have that continual, not just onboarding, but you have that continually.
Yes. Yeah.
And have internships. Have someone from a totally different part of the organization to come and just shadow someone for a while and see what it is. So many good ideas have come, like from the client management area, for example. I always get this complaint from the customer we always have to sort out and sort of convince the customer not to make it such an issue.
Yes.
But then you literally have someone from accounts who don't deal with clients at all. They're like accounts receivable.
Yes.
Or accounts payable, whatever, coming and going, well, have you ever thought about this with that particular customer? No, I never thought about it that way. Why? Because we get tunnel vision. We know what we do, 80-20 rule, Pareto's principle. What we do 80% of the time actually is the top 20% of our work. 20% of our work does 80% of every output that we have. There's so many blind spots there that you can have people from other parts of the organization come up with solutions. So for me, onboarding is about not just sitting with the department that you've brought into, and this is how we do things here. Another element is actually get everyone to a customer.
Yes.
So even if you're onboarding someone that's got no customer facing or customer contact area, get them in front of a customer, take them to a customer.
Listen to the questions, listen to the engagement.
And say, here's Martin. He's our janitor.
I've done that job before, so don't worry about that. I've done that job.
But seriously, and he, part of our culture here at XYZ is we get everyone involved. If he joins our meeting, sure, who's going to say no?
I love it. I loved it, because you also talked about intern. You mentioned intern. With today's workforce, we've got a lot of contractors. We've got job share. We've got all of these. These are additional challenges that come in of how much are we, how do we get everyone seamlessly understanding who we are, the direction we're taking, what we need to focus on the next 12 months, now what we need to get done in the next month or two. By the way, you used the word very earlier. How do we enable them with a connected set of tools so they can really not just understand it now, get in there and get their job done with the rest of the team? Not as individuals, with the rest of the team. And we just had a client bring on the intern one was funny because they just brought on 2 interns, and it worked out that they were productive within 6 hours of their first day, like fully productive. They knew the vision, they knew the strategy, they knew the focus, and then the workspace was there. And guess what they did? They got working, right? They got working, and all of a sudden they're talking to people in Melbourne, India, Philip, and they're talking to people all over the place, getting their work done now in a connected framework, albeit they haven't met really anybody. And that was a really powerful statement for me of really how do we move our business forward in today's world. And I was really, really lucky to see it.
So the example I gave you was very much a physical example, and not a lot of organizations can afford to hire a new hire and not have them do their job for a month.
Yes.
So it's very grandiose, but doing it virtually is the key. So to what you were saying, in the days of contractors, part-time, permanent part-time, people who are plugged into our business, consultants even who are interning even in the business, whatever it is, it would be making that happen through that invisibility, that transparency that you spoke of before, and using stratapp in that way at an organization is a way that you can do that. Keeping it.
And I love when you and I connected, because we're going to have to wrap this up, because you and I could talk, as we have done, for hours on this. And again, the idea of that, the connectedness, engagement, cultural fitness. I love that word. Resilience. You talk a lot about leadership and their role and responsibility in that as well. And sometimes that is just let the team breathe, right? Don't think you need to. Another word that we're really harping on right now is our job is not to micromanage people. Our job is to enable people for their success that's connected to where we're going, right? And if we can do that, and that's why we marry up on the Simon Sinek modeling of the why. Because for me, it was never about what always the company why was. It was about really what did I want that connected to the immediacy of what the company wanted. And I was always making the decision where we aligned on that. I didn't need the company to make that decision for me. And I think we're getting better and better. And the younger generation, which I call the now gen, they're making those decisions before they even come to the workforce. So we better be clear on what our direction is. We better be clear on what their role and responsibility is. We better be clear that we can't enable them with an Excel spreadsheet and email, right? Half of them haven't even used email. We need to enable them in a completely different way. And so we've got to get ahead of those discussions. So everything that you and I talk about is we're just so aligned in relation to just the way we think of how do we actually improve the way people work, which I love.
That's why I like working with you, Marty.
Well, now I sit here and go, how does a comedian talk so seriously about this stuff? And so I'm terrible at jokes, but and I hate to put you on the spot. Do you have any good jokes for us that we could wrap with?
Well, my material is something you need to buy a ticket to see. You can catch me at Steve Hoskins on Facebook. well, I didn't get the text, man. I didn't know this was a paid gig. I thought this was like a premium event,
Your t-shirts in the mail. Your t-shirts in the mail.
Rolls Voice on Facebook. ROLLS VOICE. Rolls Voice on Facebook.
Yeah.
Yep.
Love it. So mate, thank you very much. I really do love spending quality time with you because you're a quality individual. Loving what you're doing at Rolls Voice, and we're going to continue to work together as well because I learn from you every time I spend time with you. All the very best to your beautiful young family as well. So we're all managing that with our young families in this as well. But mate, I just want to say on behalf of everyone, thank you very much for spending time on Spotlight.
Oh, mate, it's my pleasure, and thanks for inviting me. And all back to you too, my friend, and all success to stratapp. I know it was born with the vision that you had to do very similar to me, but just in a different way, is to make people's lives better and their experience better. So, Shazam.
Yeah, no, I was very, very blessed to actually bring my thinking together with my co-founder's thinking, Ash's thinking as well. And I think that's our whole mantra is how do we help people improve their lives at work? Because if we can do that, and it was really pre-COVID thinking, right, in a world that we are going to be working more remote, pre-COVID just simply accelerated these discussions, right, is what they've done. There are more important things than work. called family, our health. You know, these were all decisions that we were going to make in the future anyway. So I'm really blessed to be part of an incredible team that's taken the ideas and the thinking to a whole new level. So I appreciate your acknowledgement of that, mate. I really do.
No, pleasure.
All right, mate, we'll speak to you soon. You take care.
All right. You too, mate. All the best.